Good evening. It's the Dean Legge Show here on Dog Post. Hopefully I've gotten all of our streaming issues figured out. We'll see. You can see the graphic. I didn't mean to have that up right away. This is the Dean Legge Show presented by Bank South. I appreciate our friends at Bank South. I want to thank them for helping me present this podcast. This video cast, and the tons of people who really, it's more than tons, who are tuning in each night. I really am appreciative of everyone tuning in. If you're listening on YouTube in the car, or if you're listening to on iTunes, I'm just now pressing the button on Facebook, so I'm a little bit late. Maybe I figured out what the technical issues are. Maybe Tennessee will figure out their technical issues this week. We shall see. I'm skeptical. I think a lot of y'all are skeptical too. Excuse me if I look like I'm frazzled. I'm looking for tape, which I don't immediately see. That's okay. It's Tuesday night before Georgia and Tennessee play one another. It's a big game, always is. But just not quite as big as maybe you would think it would be. Certainly not as big as it's been in the past. Georgia, a massive favorite, 32.5-point favorite over the Vols. We just have not seen that many lines like that in SEC play for Georgia since 1994. If you've been reading the stories on Dog Post, and you know that Georgia has only been favored by more than this line once in conference history since 1994, again, which is the time at which I can go backwards and get lines, which I studiously keep. It's a lopsided affair. I mean, I'll tell you, I've talked with a lot of people this week, and my question to them has been, did you expect to see this? Was it something that you anticipated, Tennessee having the trouble that they have been having this last decade? And a lot of people did say yes, believe it or not. So Tennessee has long been in this problem. This seems to me this week, after Tennessee getting beat the way they did by the Gators, a lot of people are focusing on the problems Tennessee has got. Is this thing falling apart already for Jeremy Pruitt and company? It's a little bit hard to see that really being the case this early. I think if they take a pretty big whipping this week and then don't perform against Alabama and Auburn, you're 2-5 all of a sudden. That causes some concern for sure in any fan base. I think in a fan base as proud as Tennessee's, you're going to have a lot of people asking the question, did we hire the wrong person? But right now, Tennessee has an opportunity to still win the conference. They've only lost to the Gators. If they beat Georgia this week, they will have the capability of getting a stranglehold on that particular series. I mean, they're for this year. And no one expects that to happen. I mean, if they were a 14-point underdog, Tennessee would be, I mean, that would be a huge line. I mean, this is almost at 100% that Georgia will win this game. When I run the analysis based on what Georgia has done in the past as well as other college football games, a line that is over 30 points is very close to being a 98% chance to win the game. So, again, this is just not a game that I think a lot of people are expecting to be close. Maybe Tennessee comes in and fights. Maybe Georgia figures out some of the problems that they had in Missouri. We'll see. But it is an important game. I do not consider this a rivalry, only because if you consider this a rivalry, I think you have to start putting South Carolina in as a rivalry. I mean, obviously, Georgia has played South Carolina many more times than it has played Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. Many more is probably a strong term, but they played them more for sure. And, this is a big game. Georgia plays a lot of big games. Georgia-LSU is not a rivalry. It's a big game. Georgia-Tennessee, some people would argue it's a rivalry. I'm going to give it another 10 years and see. But, for someone like me growing up in Atlanta, Georgia never played Tennessee. It just didn't happen. It happened in 80 and 81. 88 and 89, and then, I mean, that was really it. So for the formative years of my youth, it wasn't a game that was really played. I mean, Georgia played Ole Miss far more far more often, I should say, than they did Tennessee. So thanks for joining me. I'm making sure that all the audio, video is good. I'm sure I would be hearing about it from y'all. It wasn't a game that, if that were the case, if there's an issue out there, let me know. I think we're in good shape. I'm seeing everything jumping the way that that it should. Do I remember the 1990s? I remember them very well. It's a great decade for most of us. I know it was for me. That was when I went to high school and college. Certainly when I went to college. It was a different time, and that's another story for another day. Georgia and Tennessee on Saturday, 3:30 CBS. This is actually the first time that Georgia, this is technically, because of the contracts, the first time that Georgia will be on CBS under the SEC contract. The first game with South Carolina was under a sub-license from ESPN. So Georgia has this game, the Florida game, and then 3 other games that it can play from here on out on CBS without going over the number. So that would probably be LSU, Auburn, and then another game. It might be at Kentucky. It's looking like it's going to be at Kentucky, and we'll just see. I do want to thank our friends at Bank South for helping me present this broadcast. Bank South is a locally owned bank that can help you meet your goals, no matter what no matter what those goals are. Everybody's got banking that they are interested in. I know I do, and Bank South has been great in supporting us. They support us. Please support them. If you're not aware of Bank South, it's pretty simple. It's a community-based bank from Georgia, owned by Georgians. They can help you get into the right CDs, the perfect mortgage. It's a community-based bank in Watkinsville and Savannah and Atlanta and Athens, kind of all over the place, in Columbus. They've got mortgage company outposts nearly throughout the state. So I trust Bank South, and you should too. Here are the Bank South keys to the game. So it's number 1 right here is something I don't know if people are really doing, which is taking Tennessee seriously. I will admit, it is hard to have watched the Tennessee Gator game and take seriously in any way that the Vols will win this game. It is. It's hard to take that game seriously. It's hard to take the game seriously that Tennessee can come in with a banged up quarterback and win the game. Okay? But I think you have to take every opponent seriously. And I think that when you do that, it helps you prepare. If you're just getting ready for the Super Bowl and you don't treat each week like the Super Bowl, by the time you get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have some issues. Number 2, Bank South keys to the game. I would run it nonstop. I just don't think that Tennessee, they're not horrible stopping the run. But some of that is because they played West Virginia, a passing team. They have played some teams who, that they were, a lot better than in their 2 wins. So I would do my best if I were Georgia to consistently run the ball with your 3 and 4 backs. I would use all 4 backs and just beat up this team. It looks right now, Georgia is really dealing with injuries. And one thing that, we talk about this in the practice report today on Dog Post. The offensive line does look like that Andrew Thomas is going to come back, and it does look like Cade Mays is going to start in place of Ben Cleveland. If you want to read more about the injuries and what we sort of suspect will happen there, go to dogpost.com right now and check out what we are hearing. The third key to the game, the Bank South key to the game is, and this has been Georgia's thing, make Tennessee quit. It will be, it is something that Georgia has been trying to do, is make all these teams quit. It's easier said than done. To some degree, it is ridiculous to say, But that is something that they believe in, Georgia. They want to make the other team sort of go away, and if they can do that, quit's the term they use. But it is something that with the offensive line and the power, etc., that they have, Georgia should be able to make these teams quit. Now, we will see if they can pull that off on Saturday. Tennessee is in prime condition if he plays in this coming Saturday. I anticipate that he probably will play. Georgia is completely beat up right now on the injury front. They really are having problems. Obviously, Andrew Thomas. We anticipate that Andrew will be back. As it relates to Ben Cleveland, that's harder to know the answer to. We also included that in what we were hearing. What about got Tyreek McGee, Tyler Simmons, Monty Rice, even Tyson Campbell. There's a lot of guys who have been banged up and beat up during this this Georgia 2-week period here where nobody did. Obviously, I think a lot of people thought that the Missouri. I always felt like the Missouri game could be challenging for sure, but that Georgia got beat up, no doubt. I saw Andrew get his ankle rolled up on, and it didn't look bad. Obviously, apparently, it was not that bad, but it was. It's always Tyler Simmons has started beat up team right now. They're struggling. They are. How do you put it best? They look like they're in real trouble. They look like they are in significant trouble. And they look like, they could be a team that is ready to quit. Now, once you start throwing that around, people, that's a dog whistle for a lot of teams. They don't like that. They don't like being said that they're going to quit. That they're going to quit. They don't like, there's a lot of things that that people don't like. When you start using the word quit. But they quit in that Florida game, and that was not pretty at all. That was not pretty at all. We will see who starts for the Vols at quarterback. We'll see who plays. Real quick here, just looking at the line, let me make sure that the line is still where it has been. It's ticking down a little bit, 31.5. That's not a noticeable movement. That's for sure. I don't know. This game's going to kick at 3:30. Obviously, as I say here on Twitter and Facebook. If you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, I appreciate that too. Georgia kicking off with Tennessee, number 2 Georgia, hosting Tennessee September 29, 2018, 3:30 on CBS. These games typically kick at 3:39 or 3:40. 3:40. So buckle up and I would certainly be in your seats well before then, somewhere around 3:15 or so. Dog walk is at 145 this week if you are keeping score at home, which many of y'all do. There's a few questions here I'll try to answer on Facebook, although I'm trying to stick with the script, so to speak. Shaq Wiggins cannot possibly still be in college. So, no, he is not at Tennessee. He's played at 3 different schools. He was at Tennessee last year and got beat up pretty good on that catch by Javon Wims. Sometimes guys make plays, and that's what happened. I think it was Javon Wims. It might have really needed or wanted Zamir to be out there. I think we have officially hit that time. I mean, you don't want you don't want to be with 4 running backs if you can have 5. So I think they'd like to have Zamir back out there, but that's not going to happen. I mean, Zamir's not going to be out until at least August of next year, actually hitting and running and all that stuff. It's just not going to happen. There's no way. I mean, it would be impossible for him to play in G-Day. I mean, it would be not smart for him to play in G-Day. We don't know if he will or if he won't or whatever, but yeah, I don't anticipate that Zamir will be back anytime soon. And this is the type of game that they could use him in. In a couple of weeks at LSU, they really could use Zamir. But, you know, you've got what you've got, and that's why you go out and recruit. I mean, James Cook is probably going to need to have a couple of carries in this game. But this is going to be Zamir and Elijah and this offensive line and Jake Fromm and these receivers who are very good. I mean, they're legit, man. I mean, they are a legit group of receivers. At the beginning of the season, you know, they all talked about how they wanted to be known as the best receiving corps in the country. I mean, I think you can make the argument that they are, or at least that they're in the discussion for sure. So, and you know, the other thing is, and if you should be going to Dog Post right now and checking out Dog Post. What we're hearing always gets signups. It just does. It's very popular. Today it talks about the receiver position and a lot of other positions with injuries and so forth. Why isn't Terry Godwin playing as much as he has played in the past? You know, I'd go there and read what is being reported from Dog Post. It's not anything scandalous, but it will fill in a lot of the cracks that other traditional reporting outlets don't do. Just kind of wondering here. I know we got on a little bit later than I'd like. You know, I'll talk real quick about the brief history of Tennessee, Georgia that I remember. I mean, Tennessee was not, Georgia was not in the same league as Tennessee from 1992 until really 1997. And then that year they go up to Tennessee. 1995, of course, could have been a very different, could have been a very different year if they don't get ravaged with injuries at really important positions, quarterback, running back. But anyway, Tennessee was just so much better for a lot of that time, and Georgia just couldn't deal with them. And then it started turning. Jim Donna's recruiting efforts finally starting to pay off in the year 2000 after getting solidly beaten in 1998 and 1999. Georgia wins at home in Athens, destroy the Hedges. Then they win a stunner in 2001. Mark Richt coming to Georgia really changed Tennessee's fortunes. And I know that one win over the Vols didn't prevent Tennessee from going on to win the East or the conference or the national championship. That was Nick Saban at LSU. But from that moment on, from that championship game on, and I guess to some degree losing to Georgia in October, that kind of wet fall October in Knoxville after a nearly stunning victory by the Vols. Georgia outplayed them the whole day. Georgia took over the series. I mean, since that time, Tennessee has only won in 2004, 2007, 2009, 2015, and 16. I mean, it's been slim pickings for a program that dominated Georgia 8 years in a row in the 90s. I mean, it was not, well, no, it was more than that. It was 9 years in a row. And then finally, when they came back to Athens in 2000, Tennessee has just never been the same since. It's a tough place to play, Nealon. It's a very loud and tough place to play. Jeremy Pruitt has an extremely difficult job on his hands. Now, I'm not just some guy saying this. I have been in this ball game for nearly 2 decades. I understand how tough that job at Tennessee is. It's as tough as the job at South Carolina. And you got more resources at Tennessee, but you don't have more players. And that is a real challenge for anybody who's the head coach up there. Jeremy's personality is not going to mesh well with everybody around. So they're going to have to navigate that. When you win, you can pull that sort of stuff off. When you're not winning, you better have some cohesive players, some guys who really want to be on the team with you. Otherwise, you know, it could be a long season. And it is going to be a long season in Knoxville for the Vols. It's hard to see. It is hard to see Tennessee coming up and getting to a bowl at this stage. A lot of people think that they very well could wind up with an 0-8 season in the SEC. I'm not as sure about that. Again, I want to thank our friends at Bank South for helping present this broadcast. Bank South is a locally owned bank that can help you meet your goals, no matter what those goals are. If that's finding the right CD, the perfect mortgage, or a community-based bank here in Georgia that you can trust. I trust Bank South, and you should too. Here's a comment on Facebook about Georgia's offense and Jim Chaney. I think this is kind of a good question here, or a good comment. There were some times on Saturday where I did not understand the run call situations. You get Justin Fields in there to get the ball on the precipice of a goal line, and then all of a sudden you pull him out after he gets you right there, kick a field goal, I think it was. I really did not understand I think it was 4th and short. It might have been 3rd and short. I can't remember. And you go with your smallest back in Brian Herrien. I didn't get that. That was very much like the Vanderbilt game in 2016 where you go with Isaiah McKenzie. Can't you just slam it up in there with either Fields or Fromm, or get someone behind Fromm on a sneak and just push them? I didn't like that. Again, this is where you're missing Zamir, but you could turn around and give it to Elijah. So there's always going to be the ability to criticize play callers and play calling, because that's what we do. That's how this works. Everybody will survive. This is the world we live in. But Jim Chaney's offense has produced this year, no doubt about it. They have really scored a bunch of points. They got a lot of help on Saturday from special teams and defense. Yes, special teams and defense. And that may be what Georgia needs to keep them where they need to go. If you look at Alabama and Georgia, it's pretty clear that Alabama is a better team than Georgia. But Alabama might not be better in special teams, and that could cause some real problems for the Tide, particularly if Tua has an off night. Him having an off night, and then you go to number 2, whose name's magically escaped me. That's not going to solve your problems. He couldn't move the ball against Georgia last year either. So I am already looking down the road at that. It could be that LSU winds up there. We don't know. I doubt that. I do still think this is a collision course between Georgia and Alabama in Atlanta in December. But we're a long way from that, so I'll just hold my horses on that one too. But I do think Georgia's special teams have been very good this season. But Jim Chaney and them have, and not by accident, have scored 40 points or more, in 3 of their 4 games, and then Georgia collectively has scored 40 points or more in all 4 of their games. So it's been a very productive, Mike Bobo like production on offense. But there have been some curious calls when it seems like Georgia could just run the ball up in there, and they don't. And that to me is the part that I don't, really get, I guess you could say. If you are watching this, if you're one of the however many thousand people that watches this, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the Dog Post members. There are a lot of you. And I would encourage, if you're not a member of Dog Post, it is $14 a month. If you are an annual subscriber, it's $11 a month. So it's well worth your money and time. We talk about a lot of stuff in a sophisticated manner. There's very few pictures of bikini-clad women on Dog Post. We're straight to the football, and it's an intelligent discussion almost all the time. Now, when we start talking about food, barbecue, stuff like that, maybe a little less sophisticated, a little less refined, because people, for some reason, like get into big fights about barbecue and food. Georgia and Tennessee this Saturday in Athens. Georgia has a shot to tie the all-time record with Tennessee at, I think it's 24 all or 22 all. I can't remember off the top of my head which it is, but they have the ability to tie it up. They tied it up and have since gone past Auburn. Let's just see what they do against Tennessee on Saturday. I think Georgia wins big. My guess would be that they probably do cover the line. Anybody that's allowing Florida to score almost 50 points on them is in trouble. I would say that. This has been the Dean Legge Show presented by Bank South. Go to dogpost.com right now. Sign up. I appreciate everybody listening and watching. We'll see you on Saturday in Athens.